My name is Luis Eduardo Marulanda. I'm the Vice President of External Affairs and Communications of Cerrejon.
Luis, thank you for talking to us today. Can I begin by asking you, in all the initiatives that you're doing in response to the pandemic, how do you decide who to partner with? You have an enormous number of different kinds of allies and partners. And what are some of the challenges in working with very different partners, perhaps in civil society and government?
The COVID crisis has demonstrated once again that, the relevance of alliances, of working together to overcome, to joint efforts and to articulate actions to achieve better outcomes. We are always willing to work with different stakeholders in joint projects, seeking to overcome diverse perspectives of the different actors in the territory, but we focus on common objectives. And this one, the crisis has certainly created a common objectives for all actors in the territory. So, we believe that working in alliances is critical. We believe that companies should not work alone in the territory. If they do work alone in the territory, they run the risk of being perceived first as replacing the role of the government. Secondly, if we work with other actors in the territory, we can implement and structure and implement projects, social projects that have an impact, a bigger impact in the communities. And thirdly, working with different allies assures the sustainability of such programs. So it's very key, and we have the experience and the history of being in La Guajira. So that history, that experience, knowing the culture of the different groups, especially indigenous groups, that makes us, a good partner to work with in La Guajira.
So you need to build on existing relationships rather than having to try and create something from scratch.
Exactly. And again, we run a business that is non-renewable, and as such, we are temporary in the territory. Communities will always be there, so we have to make sure that we foster autonomous and sustainable communities for the future. We focus on working our social investment, our social strategy, our community strategy to try to foster and to obtain and to enhance the UN development sustainable goals. So we are focused on that. We know that we being in the business that we are at, we're going to be criticized, scrutinized. But we focus on again partnering with all actors in the territory to make sure that we are again fostering autonomous and sustainable communities, and that we are actually effectively contributing to the well-being of these communities now and in the future.
You mentioned the issue of indigenous people. Obviously, that's a concern in La Guajira. I think probably in that area, maybe you also, certainly in Colombia as a whole, there is an issue of migrant and displaced populations. How do you see the particular dilemma facing these kind of marginalized groups? What can you as a company do about it?
Since day one, when this crisis began, we recognize, knowing the territory, knowing having the experience that we have, knowing that, these communities rely on their day-to-day income generating activities. They have to go out. The first day that this crisis began, all these communities went out to protest, to request aid from the government. We immediately contacted and articulated with the government, national, regional, and local, to make sure that they prioritize these communities in their delivery of humanitarian aid. And we have began articulating with them and with other NGOs the delivery of humanitarian support to the communities. So, so by doing this, we were able, I mean, at the first days, I mean, the communities went out to the roads to protest. They basically were exposing themselves to the virus, but making sure that we, in a timely manner and very rapidly, reacted to this and supported these communities with potable water, with food aids in their own communities. We were able to convince them to go back to their houses, to their towns, and leave the protest which were exposing themselves to the virus. So that response was timely and helped a lot, I mean, to support the crisis.
There have been some interesting initiatives in Colombia, I think, to engage displaced people, particularly, and migrant communities in economic livelihoods. So not just going beyond humanitarian aid and protection and the kind of things that you're describing. Is that something that you see as useful? Is it something that Cerrejon does? Can you think about, you know, treating these kind of marginalized groups in a much more economic, inclusive way as well?
Yes, I mean, and one of the things that, I mean, we focus our support from the very beginning was to support the health system in La Guajira. So we have delivered more than 100,000 medical supplies, like gloves, surgical soaps, ventilators, to the local hospitals, so they were able to respond to protect our heroes, which are the medical staff, which are attending the crisis. I mean, so this local hospital did not have these supplies in their stock, so we were able to very early supply these elements that are helping to support the crisis. More importantly, we are in the process of delivering a molecular lab to La Guajira, which is going to be the first lab for molecular testing in La Guajira. This is going to be critical, as you know. The best way to fight this pandemic is by doing testing, or one of the most important, besides, I mean, of course, keeping the health protocols. But with this contribution, we're gonna be able to deliver to the Department of La Guajira a critical tool to support the crisis.
What do you think will be the lasting changes from this pandemic in the way that you see issues like sustainability, how you operationalize that, and how you look at how you try to achieve your ESG, economic, environmental, social, and governance goals? Will the pandemic change how you address that?
Certainly, this crisis changes the way in the companies will operate and approach different sustainability issues. We need to learn. We are learning every day. I think that again, working in alliance with the different actors in the territory will continue to be very important to engage this new era of the new world. But I mean, going back, we need to go back to the basics. I mean, having a very open, horizontal, two-way dialogue with communities is the way going forward. I mean, we need to continue to create trust, to generate trust, and to foster autonomous and sustainable communities for the future.